Have you ever had that feeling that something is going wrong in Demeo Dungeons and Dragons Battlemarked, but you just can't put your finger on what it is? Yeah, a lot of people go through that. And the worst part is that most of the time, the problem isn't the game, it's your decisions inside the dungeons. Today, we're going to reveal 10 super common mistakes that end up destroying entire matches. Mistakes that you've probably committed without even realizing it. So get ready, because after this video, your strategies will never be the same. I'm Matthew, and the video starts right now. I see a lot of people starting out in Battlemarked and treating the board as if simply walking is progress. And I totally get the impulse. You want to touch the enemy, you want to fix your positioning, you want to feel like you're doing something every turn. But in this game, action is a premium currency, and spending AP just to walk usually ends up being the kind of expense you only notice too late when combat gets tight. The detail that changes everything is remembering that many attacks, especially melee ones, already come with this movement bonus built in. So instead of spending AP to walk to the target and then spending more AP to hit, you can often turn this into a single play. You close the gap within the attack itself and still generate immediate impact. In practice, this is the difference between a turn that threatens the enemy and a turn that just positions itself and hopes not to get punished. And then comes the cruelest part. Pure movement is the type of turn that invites the game to charge you. You walk, you don't remove a threat from the board, you don't reduce anyone's HP, you don't create area control, you don't interact with an objective, and the enemy remains intact with their turn coming up. When you realize it, that AP that seemed like just a little step was exactly the AP missing to finish off a dangerous target, interrupt a caster, or simply keep the team from being surrounded. Of course, repositioning exists for a reason, and sometimes it is the best play in the world, but it has to be strategic repositioning. Walking to break line of sight, pulling enemies to a choke point, clearing space for an ally to use an ability, getting within range of an important interaction, or setting up a strong turn for the next round. That is different from walking just because of anxiety during the turn. I try to ask myself, if I spend this AP walking, what do I really gain right now or next turn? So my mental rule is very simple. First, I look for an action that changes the state of combat: damage, control, objective, protection. Then I see if I can fit movement inside a useful action, and only at the end do I accept pure movement as a last resort. When you start playing like this, the team's rhythm improves immediately because every AP becomes real pressure on the board, and the game stops feeling like you're constantly playing catch-up. I see a lot of people treating cards as if they were, quote, infinite ammo, and that takes a toll very quickly. At the beginning, it feels good. You draw a cool card, you want to test it right away, you want to feel the power of the build happening. But the game doesn't give you cards for free. Either it costs you AP on the turn, or it's limited and you don't know when another one like it will appear. The classic mistake is spending a card to solve something your turn would solve normally. Like burning a strong effect to overkill a weak enemy that would fall with a basic attack, or using heavy control when the target isn't even the biggest threat of the round. You might win that moment, but you lose what matters most: the option to turn the tables when a bad room comes up, an unexpected spawn happens, or a boss decides to focus your healer. Another part beginners tend to forget is that cards aren't just about you. They mess with the entire team's turn. I've seen turns get weird because someone spent an expensive card in AP and ended up not positioning correctly, or because they burned a resource that combined better with the next player's play. In a cooperative game, waste isn't just inefficient, it creates a hole in the collective strategy because the team starts reacting with fewer tools. When I'm playing, I like to think of cards as emergency buttons and victory accelerators, not turn decorations. If the card is going to prevent a wipe, guarantee an objective, save an ally who is about to drop, or remove a threat that is out of control, then yes, I press the button without mercy. And whenever possible, I prioritize the 0 AP ones, especially potions, because they keep your turn running. You heal, buff, or prepare without sacrificing your main action. At the end of the day, holding cards isn't playing with fear, it's playing with future vision. The game loves to punish you when you spend beautifully early on and then enter a situation where any extra tool would make a difference. So I try to keep a simple discipline. If it's not a critical moment and it doesn't create a real advantage for the team, I keep it, because the turn where you really need that card always comes. I think the most silent mistake is playing as if it were single player. You look at your turn, make the best play for yourself, and pass the turn. It seems efficient, and sometimes it even is, but the game is co-op, and real co-op starts when you see your turn as part of a group sequence, not as an isolated moment. What happens most is someone spending an excellent card or using the perfect action at the wrong timing and unintentionally ruining a bigger play. Like pushing an enemy that was lined up for an ally's area attack, applying a status that changes the preferred target, or finishing off an enemy that another player was going to eliminate for free with an already prepared effect. The intention is good, but the result is the team losing value because the pieces didn't fit. For me, the key is always thinking, what am I leaving ready for the next player? Instead of just seeking immediate damage, I start looking for plays that pave the way. Grouping enemies for an AoE, locking down someone dangerous so they don't act, breaking line of sight, or stripping armor for someone else to finish. There are turns where the best thing you can do is prepare the board, because the power spike comes in the group's next movement. And communication is literally part of the player's kit, just like attacking or using a card. Sometimes it's a quick phrase. Are you going to AoE now? Do you want me to pull them here? I'll hold my cards and you explode them. Can I finish this one, or do you need him alive for a combo? This type of micro combo turns a difficult room into a clean turn and avoids that horrible feeling of, I played well, but the team ended up worse off. When the squad starts playing with this mindset, the game becomes lighter and more consistent, because you stop competing for impact and start setting up chain plays. And honestly, that's where Battlemarked shines for me, when every turn feels like a well-placed domino piece, and not 4 people trying to solve the same problem at the same time. I've seen and made this mistake in Battlemarked that hurts more than taking a crit. Keeping a hand full of cards, and when a chest or a good reward finally appears, it simply vanishes. It's that moment when you realize you were rich in options, but poor in space. And the game has no pity. It doesn't save it for later. The problem is that filling your hand gives a false sense of security. You look and think, I'm prepared for anything. But in practice, half of those cards are situational, duplicates, cost too much AP, or have already lost their timing. Then, when a really strong event/chest card appears, you can't pick it up, and the team loses power without even choosing to lose it. The way I deal with this is to treat hand space as a progression resource, not as a collection. If I'm carrying a card I know I won't use, because it doesn't fit my character, because it costs too much, or because the group already has a better solution, I prefer to let it go early. It hurts a little to discard, but it hurts much more to lose a reward that could change the run. And here come the tools that the game gives you and many people ignore: the shop and the blue discard. The shop isn't just for buying, it's for clearing mental inventory. You turn trash into some value and also organize your hand. And the blue discard, besides creating space, has that important side of resetting the meter. So it's not just getting rid of a bad card, it's regaining control of the flow and getting good stuff consistently again. In the end, I try to keep a simple rule. If my hand is too full, I'm not strong, I'm stuck. I prefer to walk with room to breathe, because Battlemarked rewards those who can accept loot at the right moment and adapt the strategy. And nothing adapts less than a handful of cards you're not going to play. Opening a chest without checking the team is the kind of thing that seems small, until you see a rare card appear and evaporate because someone had a full hand. And the worst part is, you can't even blame malice. Usually, it's just excitement, that urge to click the chest and see the loot right now, as if it were an instant prize. But in multiplayer, a chest isn't my moment. It's a group resource. When you open it without warning, you force everyone to accept the reward at that second, even if someone is stuck with a full hand. Then, the result is cruel. It's not just that you lost an item, the whole team lost the chance to choose, optimize, and distribute properly. What I do is turn this into an automatic habit. Before opening, I always ask, do you guys have space? Or, does anyone need to discard first? It's a 2-second phrase that saves minutes of frustration and avoids that feeling of, man, we just threw a reward away. And if someone says they're full, cool, hold the chest, go to the shop/blue discard, organize, and only then open it. It's also worth thinking about the chest timing as part of the strategy. Sometimes it pays to open it when the team has already decided who needs more tools for the next fight, or when you've just used cards and opened up space naturally. A chest opened at the wrong time becomes just noise. A chest opened at the right timing becomes a power spike for the group. Deep down, it's one of those social rules that make co-op much more fun. It's not about asking for permission, it's about respecting the run. Because when you do this quick check, the loot becomes a smart choice for the team, and not an accident that everyone will remember exactly when resources start running low later on. Opening a door or entering the darkness on the second AP is a classic rhythm trap. You do something on the first AP, think there's still time, and then spend the second AP revealing the next room, only to discover that now you have nothing left to react with. And that is exactly how a normal turn becomes a dead turn. The problem isn't just opening the door itself, it's what that does to information. When you reveal enemies, traps, or bad positioning, the game basically asks, so, what are you going to do about this? But if you opened it on the second AP, the answer is nothing. You stand there, often exposed, and you've handed line of sight to the enemies to start their turn exactly how they want. When I'm playing, I try to treat exploration as an action that needs to come early in the turn, not as leftovers at the end. Using the first AP to open a door or advance carefully into the darkness gives you a margin to complete the turn with something useful. Retreating to a choke point, using an attack, placing control, drinking a 0 AP potion, or simply repositioning to not take focus. This reaction margin is what keeps the team in control. The line of sight part is where this gets even more important. Opening a door the wrong way can put you, and sometimes the group, in the shop window, offering perfect angles for ranged enemies and casters. If you explore first, you can see without committing, and choose where to stand to break long of sight, force the enemy to walk, or pull the fight to better terrain. I play with a very grounded rule. If I'm going to reveal a new area, I want to have AP left over to fix any surprises. Doors and darkness aren't just map, they are combat triggers. So I prefer to open early, see what's coming, and still be able to act, rather than opening on the second AP and letting the enemy turn decide the rest of the story. Leaving rooms dark is the kind of thing that seems like a problem for later, until later becomes hell. At the beginning of the floor, you think, we'll clear what's in front and move on. But when you ignore the darkness, the game transforms those areas out of your vision into an enemy factory, and suddenly you are fighting against the map, not against a specific group. The cruel point is that spawning in the darkness completely messes up your sense of control. You are no longer decreasing the number of threats definitively because there is always a chance of more things appearing behind you, on the flank, or exactly on the path you thought was safe. Then the team wastes time going back, spends cards out of panic, and the floor's rhythm falls apart. For me, maintaining LOS is almost a group maintenance task, like cleaning the area so dirt doesn't accumulate. I try to think like this. If I'm not seeing a room, I'm accepting free risk. Especially near the end of the floor, when everyone is already tight on resources and any extra fight becomes an absurd drain on AP, health, and cards. And this is where many people get positioning wrong. Everyone stays glued together, advancing as a block, and leaves a trail of darkness forming behind. Instead, I like it when the team spaces out intelligently. It's not separating to die alone, it's distributing vision. One stays holding a corridor with LOS, another covers the previous room, while the rest clear the front. This way, you greatly reduce the chance of the game surprising you with respawns in places that break your formation. In the end, I see this as exploration discipline. You don't need to light up the entire floor, but you need to deny the game those free zones where it can punish you without warning. When the team maintains line of sight in key rooms, fights become more predictable, progress becomes cleaner, and you feel like you are actually moving forward, instead of being stuck in a loop of clear, respawn, clear again.
Ignoring priority enemies happens a lot when the fight turns into chaos and you go into autopilot mode,
Hitting what's closest, clearing what's in front of you, and moving on. But the game punishes this haste because not every enemy on the board is worth the same trouble. And sometimes, you are spending entire turns putting out small fires while the real threat prepares the damage. What changes my game is remembering that priority is not proximity, it is risk. I try to focus first on those with the most health, the most damage, or abilities that disorganize the group, because those are the ones that prolong the fight and drain resources. If you leave a tanky enemy alive for too long, they hold space, block paths, force you to spend expensive cards, and create opportunities for others to surround you. And there's a simple habit that many people don't use: picking up the enemy piece and looking at the stats. This is free information that decides the turn. It's also worth a warning about the so-called berserk. Many people get obsessed with not letting it drop below 50% for fear of the extra action, and end up making bad decisions because of it. I look at it this way: if I can finish it, I finish it. If I can't, I prepare to deal with their reaction instead of wasting damage or switching targets just to avoid a trigger. Ignoring berserk as automatic panic helps you keep focus on the real plan, which is reducing threats consistently. In the end, I like to think that every turn is a question. Which enemy, alive, will make the next round worse? If you answer this by looking at stats and not just distance, combat becomes much more controlled. And ironically, when you kill the priority ones first, the easy enemies become exactly that, easy, because you are no longer fighting a ticking time bomb in the middle of the room.
I fell into this mistake right in the first runs because the game kind of invites you to take care of the whole team as if everyone were going to evolve together. So you open the ability tabs, start planning beautiful growth for each group member, and suddenly realize there's something strange. Only one of them is really getting stronger the way you imagined. The point is simple, but totally changes how you play. The one who really levels up is your main character, the Origin. They are the one who gains progression through the ability tabs and becomes, over time, the centerpiece of your strategy. The hirelings help, hit, hold pressure, and sometimes save a turn, but they won't scale with you in the same way. So investing your mentality in them as if they were co-protagonists is a waste of focus. The problem with this mistake appears when you try to split resources, turns, and build decisions as if you had 4 growing characters. You end up playing way too cautiously, trying to preserve a hireling at all costs, taking a weird route to farm as if everyone needed to follow the same power curve. Meanwhile, your Origin is left without ideal support, without room to shine, and worse, you start feeling like the game is harder than it should be. When I understood this, my combat reading changed. I started assembling the team as if it were 1 main and 3 tools. The Origin is your run project. That's where you think about synergy, power spike timing, and how your choices will carry you through the most unfair rooms. As for the hirelings, they become disposable support in the best possible sense. Pawns to block paths, spend aggro, pull risk, burn enemy resources, an open space for your main character to decide the fight. So if you're feeling like your run is stalling, try this mindset. Choose an origin to be the heart of the party and play the rest of the cast as utility. It's not playing badly or sacrificing the team, it's just accepting how the system was designed. And when you stop confusing progression, the game becomes clearer, more efficient, and honestly, much more fun. This is that type of mistake I've made myself because, in theory, hazard on the floor always seems like an advantage. Throw poison here, spill oil there, wet the whole area, and done. Total control. But in Battlemarked, these zones and status effects aren't just offensive tools. They change the math of combat, and sometimes they change it against you faster than you have time to react. The most classic example is wet. You see water on the floor and think, okay, just a map detail. But then you take a lightning bolt or an ice attack and realize that was practically an invitation for a damage explosion. I've been in situations where I was super confident, trying to prepare the terrain for a combo, and ended up preparing my own funeral because I left the team exposed in a place that amplified exactly the type of damage the enemy wanted to deal. Oil and poison fall into the same category of mental trap. They look like area control, but require turn planning and reading what comes next. Oil, for example, is wonderful until the moment someone, you or the enemy, brings fire into the play, and then that space that was a safety zone becomes a bonfire that traps rotation, cuts off escape lines, and forces you to spend resources just to survive. Poison can also become a false sense of advantage because you keep counting on damage over time, but if the fight accelerates or the enemy forces you to reposition, you wasted cards/turns and still put yourself in a bad situation. And there's a detail many people underestimate: summons. I understand the urge to summon close to the enemy to buy time or block advance, but summoning right next to danger, in a contaminated area, or in a position that activates status, is asking to lose value instantly. A poorly placed summon becomes bait. It dies fast, doesn't create a real control zone, and even gets in your own way, especially when the floor is already full of hazards and you need space to reposition without taking extra punishment. The way I started playing better was to treat hazards and status effects as if they were a grenade without a pin. Powerful, but you need to know exactly when and where to use it. Before dropping water, oil/poison, I ask myself, who benefits from this next turn? And what element might appear right after? If the answer includes the enemy or I don't know, I hold the card, reposition, and try to build the combo carefully. Because in this game, the map is a weapon, but sometimes it's also the weapon pointed at you.